Hello, class. My name is Andrew Jones. I'm your professor for Marketing428, Marketing Services. Um, Hopefully you've seen the syllabus. Every week I will have reading assignments. Um, and then usually on Monday or Tuesday, I will post something like I'm posting today. Can just be slides, maybe slides and a video. Could be an article. At the end of the day, um, it's really supplemental information to the reading. I'm going to show you a couple of slides that are highlighting some of the key points in the first two chapters. And so every Monday or Tuesday, I'll try to do the same thing. And the whole idea there is hopefully you're doing the reading, but I also want to kind of highlight some of the key things to take away. And then usually on Wednesday and Thursdays, I will post an assignment. The assignments are not long. It can be a handful of questions in some cases. In like this week's, since some of you may not have your books yet, um, I will I'll kind of make it simple and it'll almost be more of a discussion. And I will post that assignment on Wednesday or Thursday. Um, and then it will be due usually the following Monday or Tuesday. In the case of this week, we have Labor Day weekend, and so I'll make it due on Tuesday. The key thing about the assignments, again, they're not most of the cases they are not super difficult. You do have to know the information, and it's really drawing out some of those key points that, if nothing else, you uh, walk away from this class with a good understanding of. Um, and then there will be a final project towards the end. In the past, I've done kind of brand strategies and um, related to services and marketing services. And so it would be something along those lines. And then there will be three exams. The first and second exam will be, in essence, the first half of the class and most of the second half of the class. And then the final is material that you haven't been tested on yet, but also some of the materials from the first and second exam. And the idea there is, to test you on kind of the key points. I mean, at the end of the day, I really hope you walk away from this class with a good understanding of how to market it services, and we'll get into some of the materials, but most of you, if you go into a career of marketing, you may find yourself marketing as service. And so I do think this is an important subject. And again, hopefully you walk away with a good foundation to start your career and propel your professional path. So with that, I'm going to dive into this. This one might be a little longer because I'm doing this introduction. But I'll try to keep, if I do a video, I'll try to keep it short. I know everyone's attention spans are short and no one wants to watch or listen to a video for 45 minutes, an hour. So I'll get right into it. Real quickly, who am I? Or a little bit about me. I grew up mainly in Santa Barbara, California. Obviously, I live in Virginia Beach now. I actually, a unique thing, I lived in the Marshall Islands when I was really young. I do have a family, so I have three boys. I'm married. I've been married for 26 years. I have three boys, and I have a cat. We did have a dog. We had a beautiful golden retriever that I miss every day, but she passed away earlier this year. Education-wise, went to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo in California, and then also the University of the Pacific. I have been teaching. This is actually the third year I've taught this class at ODU. I've taught a few other classes, social media, sales management, but I also did teach in California at California Lutheran University. As far as my career, So currently, I'm the CMO and co-founder of a startup, digitaleasy.cloud, and that's in some ways it is a service. So like this class, if nothing else, is helping me kind of reinforce some of my old learnings. Um, but it's we've been live since July, so it's early stages. Um, I consult. Right now, I'm working on a email automation project with Bridgestone Tires. I've been the CMO before for a smaller company, and then I worked 17 years at Anthem. Actually, it's called Elevance Health now, in the health insurance space. And then shortly after earning my MBA, I worked at American Honda Motors in a product planning role. It was actually the coolest job I ever had. Um, and it was so early in my career. So, uh, hopefully all of you will have a cool job. But I, in essence, I spent a lot of time driving test cars, so that was a cool experience. Just some other weird stuff. I was a registered pro surfer for 2 years, only entered one contest, and there's a bit of a midlife crisis story behind that one. Um, I earned a Tello Award for a Spanish TV spot. Um, I worked at the last full service gas station in Santa Barbara. I'm a blueberry farmer, a small blueberry farmer, and not a very good one. And then, I'm covering it up, but when I was at American Honda Motors, I was interviewed on Car Talk. Gosh, and this was back in 2003, so a long time ago. But that's a little bit about me. I always try to share at the beginning of class who I am. Gives you some reference point, as as you ask me questions or as we engage in topics throughout the course. So getting into it, um, one of the things, services. So again, I mentioned many of you may end up working for a service or marketing a service. It's highly likely because most of our US domestic product is driven by services. So you can be in finance, real estate, transportation, professional services. The startup that I'm part of is basically internet services, website building, digital marketing, and so I do think it's important to realize, like, as the U.S. in essence manufactures less, its services in essence, that's really the skill. The U.S. power is its ability to provide great services. So I do think it's important. And again, many of you will find yourself in a career where you're marketing a service. Um, Technology is huge. So AI, and towards the end of this class, we'll get a little bit into AI. But AI, is part of this as well. But technology, the internet, um, the fact that more and more things are becoming self-service using technology. You go to Taco Bell, right? I love Taco Bell. Um, yeah, you can order at the cash register, or you can go to the kiosk, and so technology is becoming much more of that service. In some ways, less of that human touch, um, and some people view it as negative, right? I know sometimes. Well, a really good example, if you've ever used Google advertising and you run into a hiccup, it's almost impossible to get a hold of a human being at Google to assist you with your advertising campaign. Um, and because it's all driven by self-service and knowledge libraries and so forth. So, obviously that's a key trend. Um, you know, Not to get too much into the startup I've been working on, but a lot of it is kind of this idea of trying to make it as easy as possible. And that's, using technology, but trying to make it as easy as possible. Uh, the other thing with services is it does expand the four Ps, right? So any of you marketing majors out there, you've heard 4Ps: product, price, place, promotion. Um, it expands it to 3 additional Ps. So people, physical evidence, and process. And people is in essence that human touch. And we just talked about technology in some ways is minimizing that, but it's the human factor of the service, and which is often the piece that is kind of the most variable, right? Like how someone interacts. If you're at a restaurant, 2 different waiters or waitresses may respond, maybe having a good or bad day, and may provide different levels of service. Physical evidence, again, the environment. A really good example in the retail space is REI, right? Like the adventure, apparel and equipment. And so they're providing the service of you can come to their store and buy everything from rock climbing to canoeing to backpacking to running. And it's in this really cool environment. Like you almost feel like you want to go out and try rock climbing. And then the process, right? Like the procedures, the mechanism. Is it a good experience? Like, is it a experience like the DMV, or is it an experience where you're engaged and you leave there thinking, oh, it was a great, you know, I bought something, I bought a service, and it was a great experience and great time for me. And so, again, examples of the 4 Ps. Product. You have packaging, product lines, um, branding. You got for the place. You have outlet locations, managing channels, intermediaries, and then the promotions, right? You have salespeople, you have advertising, you have publicity, internet, web, so forth, and then pricing, right? You have flexibility, terms, discounts, allowances that play into it. And then the three additional P's that make it 7 P's is people, right? You got employees, customers play a role. You got that physical evidence, right? So the facility, the signage, even how the employees dress, right? Like, is there a uniform, or is it, a trendier, stylish experience? And then the process, right? Like, how do you come in through the door? Um, where do you order? Where do you check out? You know, that whole experience, and how easy it is, how complex it is, how easy it is to find stuff, so forth. And then one of the things, if you've taken any of my classes, I mean, one of the things I harp on the most of all, and I always throw some question in an exam about this, is um, just the importance of trying to know your customer. Really thinking about who your customer is. What is that expectation? Again, using the startup that I'm involved in as example, right? We're trying to make it super easy for small businesses to stand up a website and digital marketing. And we've really scrutinized. Now, we don't have the funding for a lot of primary research, but we really tried to put ourselves in uh, the the position of a small business, right? Like um, a photographer, or a small retail outlet that's trying to get online, um, and really try to put ourselves in the spot of someone who maybe hasn't built a website, or maybe hasn't ran digital marketing, doesn't understand SEO, or simply just doesn't have the time. Like, you know, uh, uh, plumbing company. There's just not the resources to spend on standing up a website and trying to understand all the intricate aspects of digital marketing and excel at it, right? And so we're trying to make it as easy as possible. But all myself and the 2 other co-founders, we all have experience with it, right? And so it's really easy to find yourself almost um, almost getting caught up with like your own perceptions of what should be easy, and instead really trying to put yourself in the place of the customer. So I cannot stress this enough in marketing. If you can't if you can't do anything but one thing, try to know your customer. That will help you. That will make things so much easier in the long run. Um, and again, there's more information on chapter one, but those are really the highlights. Diving into chapter two, um, the book and the text really is based on this foundation of customer gaps, and there's 4 customer gaps, and we'll get into that. But really, it's this idea that like that gap, hopefully it's small or completely closed, but it's what is the expected service and what is the perceived service, right? And ideally, so again, I'm going to try not to use my startup as an example, but um, we're saying it's easy to build a website. You can build a website in 4 minutes. Well, like that's the expected service, right? Like you can stand up a website in 4 minutes and it's super easy. It uses AI. Um, but is it perceived that way? Like, are you actually achieving that, right? Um, and so that creates that gap. And so they're in essence 4 gaps. Listening gap again. What you created a gap because you're not paying attention to your customers. Gonna go back to make sure you know your customers. Um, the design and standards gap, right? Which is the second one. You're not designing it in a way that meets that expectation. Um, and then the performance gap, not delivering to service design and standards, right? So, um, you know, you're offering a website building service, but it's constantly going down and crashing. And then the final one is communication gap. Really presenting yourself or your business or your company in a way that your service is just simply not aligned with that. Um, and so we'll dive a little bit into each of these. Gap one, um, again, inadequate customer research. Again, knowing the customer, um, insufficient relationship, inadequate service recovery, and we'll get other chapters. We'll get into service recovery more, but that's in essence where you failed, um, that you have an upset customer, and how are you backing out of that, right? How are you recovering from that? And then the second gap, is really about the poor service design, uh, absence of customer-driven standards, um, inappropriate physical evidence, like in essence, like the physical experience isn't clean, or it's just not living up. If REI, all of a sudden took on a style that was like, I don't know, suits and politicians or something, you would go into REI and you would think this isn't, what's this? Um, and then gap three, um, you know, deficiencies in human resources, customers not fulfilling their role. So the other part of this, and again, this we'll dive into this more in other chapters, but customers do play a part in the experience, right? And this isn't a great example, but you go to a restaurant, uh, you're a customer, right? You go to a restaurant. Um, you go to a Mexican food restaurant, right? So you're going there to for the service of food, but you want to eat Italian, right? And so you're asking for Italian. Like you're not fulfilling your role as a customer of like knowing the fact that like this is a Mexican food restaurant, not an Italian restaurant. Um, and then the fourth one um, is really marketing, right? And so the fourth one, all of you in this class, again, you may likely be heavily involved in trying to help an organization that offers a service kind of minimize this gap or even close this gap. This is where, communications aren't integrated, right? Like, and again, breaking it down to a restaurant, you know, the menu isn't matching what the hostess is telling you, that isn't matching what the waiters or the bartenders, and you have all these points of communication that aren't integrated and aligned. Um, and then another thing is you're over promising. Um, your horizontal communications are out of whack, and you have inappropriate pricing, right? Again, like you're pricing something for the value that you're communicating that just doesn't make sense. And again, this gap four is one that many of you will be hands-on with at some point in your career. Um, and then there's different ways to assess it, how you're doing overall, meeting expectations. Um, are you you know are you closing the four companies gaps, right? Like, so you're assessing where are those gaps, how are you closing them, um, and then um, the other thing about gaps is they also kind of highlight your strengths and weaknesses, right? So if you ever get into management, and again you're looking at this overall service organization, gap analysis is a good way to figure out, like, where do you need to pay attention. If it's the communication gap four, all right, we need to level set, we need to get everyone on the same page. Our marketing, um, our promotions, everything needs to align, so we need to close that gap. If it's performance, right, then you can dive into that and so forth. um, and so really, all right, so this went 22 minutes. um, I'll try to keep these shorter moving forward. I am super excited. I do enjoy teaching this class. It is virtual, so it makes it a little challenging. So that's why I do try to supplement things with some voiceover videos, articles, or even online discussions, and try to stimulate that, because we are not in a classroom, but I want to have a similar level of engagement. Um, I will also post the PowerPoint slides, the complete PowerPoint slides. I I still want you to do the readings, but the PowerPoint slides become a good way to study for the exams, and also make sure you're walking away with the key points. Um, and so I look at them as supplements. So I'll also post them towards the end of the week. Um, and my final advice: um, don't fall behind on the assignments. I designed my class so, number one, you walk away with what I think is most important and a few key nuggets that hopefully you'll use in your career. Um, but I also design it that you should get an A or at least a B. Um, but you just have to do the assignments. Like, even if you bomb the test, like if you looked at the syllabus, I mean, you can, if you're staying up to speed on the assignments as I post them, and again, I'll post usually one assignment a week, and then you do the final project. Even if you struggle with the exams, you can still do a good job in the class. So with that, welcome everyone, and I look forward to the semester, and thank you.